with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Several road disruptions persist tonight. The A92 Tay Road Bridge in Scotland has a speed limit of 30 miles per hour and is closed to double-decker buses due to high winds. In Staffordshire, the A254 eastbound is closed after a collision, causing diversions. Delays are expected on the A45 eastbound in Northamptonshire until 8:15. The M4 near Slough has a 40-minute westbound delay. And on the trains, cross-country services are suspended through Gloucester, with bus replacements by Great Western Railway. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benimar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think for far too long in this country, millions of people felt as though they weren't represented at all by the establishment media.
GB News was needed because there literally was no other voice. Everyone was saying the same thing.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
But journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
Charlie Peters, he gave a voice to the victims of grooming gangs, and now, of course, it's led to a national inquiry.
GB News exists to make sure those concerns are put forward and people feel as though what they want to ask is put to those in power.
We don't take orders from anyone. We ask the questions our viewers and listeners want answering.
I know what's actually being discussed by my family and my friends.
Us ordinary, hard-working British people have had enough. We've had enough.
They're fed up with the same old establishment nonsense. Everything that we do is opening up conversations that others are afraid to go at.
Why are you illegally bringing people into Britain?
That is our job. Our job is to get to the truth.
If it's important to you watching or listening at home, then it's important to us as well.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Very, very good evening to you. Welcome to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubney. Now, coming up on tonight's action-packed show, the Tories have announced a whopping £47 billion worth of spending cuts in their latest policy proposal. I'll be speaking to the Shadow Business Secretary, Andrew Griffith, in just a short moment's time. And meanwhile,
we must leave the ECHR and repeal the Human Rights Act.
Kemi Badenoch has finally come round to backing leaving the ECHR. But is this too little, too late, when Reform suggested this over a year ago? And
the division that's being created is absolutely disgusting. Mainly created by angry, middle-aged white men.
That bang was the sound of Gary Neville's reputation going up in smoke as Gary Neville bizarrely reveals he took down a union flag. We'll be looking at the upcoming Tower Hamlets Council motion, wait for it, to declare the Raise the Colours campaign as far right. And finally, a Labour council has threatened drivers with £1,000 fines for the crime of parking in their own driveways. Yes, you heard it right. Well, that's all to come, but first, here's your news headlines. It's Bethany Elsey.
Martin, thank you. Good evening. Your top stories from the GB newsroom. The Conservatives are promising a £5,000 boost for first-time buyers, calling it a first job bonus to help young people onto the property ladder. The Shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride, unveiled the plan at the party's conference in Manchester, saying it'll be funded by £47 billion in cuts. Welfare, the civil service and foreign aid are all in the firing line as the Tories try to prove they are tougher on spending than Labour.
No more pretending we can keep spending money we simply do not have. It falls to us, as today's Conservatives, to do the responsible thing. That's the right thing for our country, and it's also the right thing for the next generation. So to younger people I say, we will get debt off your back. We can and we will.
France has been plunged into fresh political turmoil after Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu quit less than a day after unveiling his cabinet. He said conditions were not fulfilled for him to continue, blaming gridlock in Parliament. The shock move comes just 26 days after he took office, becoming France's 5th Prime Minister in just under 2 years. It leaves President Emmanuel Macron facing mounting pressure to call early elections or risk another short-lived government. Stocks in Paris have fallen sharply since the announcement. Donald Trump says peace talks between Israel and Hamas in Egypt have so far been very successful, urging negotiators to move fast to avoid massive bloodshed. Hamas has agreed to parts of a 20-point US peace plan, including freeing hostages, but rejected calls to disarm. Trump says the first phase of the deal could be completed this week. Meanwhile, Israeli airstrikes have continued despite the US president calling for an immediate halt, with at least 65 more people killed in the past 24 hours. First-year doctors in England have voted overwhelmingly in favour of strike action over job insecurity. The British Medical Association says 97% back the move on a 65% turnout, calling it a clear mandate for industrial action. Talks with the government are ongoing, but the union warns they must deliver solutions on both pay and jobs to avoid walkouts. And tributes are being shared across the literary world for the much-loved author Dame Jilly Cooper, who's died at the age of 88. Her children say her death came after a fall on Sunday morning, describing it as a complete shock. Her agent, Felicity Blunt, called her unbeatable in her ability to write stories that added to the sum of human happiness. You're up to date now. It's back to Martin.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you, Beth. Now, welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host tonight, Martin Daubney. Now, today, the Tory party conference is well and underway. And earlier today, the Shadow Chancellor unveiled the party's latest plans to crack down on ballooning government debt and spending.
No more pretending we can keep spending money we simply do not have. It falls to us, as today's Conservatives, to do the responsible thing. That's the right thing for our country, and it's also the right thing for the next generation. So to younger people I say, we will get debt off your back. We can and we will.
Now, of course, it's worth remembering that the government currently borrows more than £100 billion every year, and the cost of servicing that debt in interest payments alone is an astonishing £100 billion a year too. Well, the Tories have now announced £47 billion in spending cuts to rectify this. So are they trying to learn something from this man? Yes, Argentinian President there, Javier Milei. He made cutting the size of the state the defining feature of his presidency, wielding a chainsaw, the symbol for his scepticism for the ever-expanding size of the public sector. Well, my next guest also has experience with chainsaws too. Beautiful stuff. Now, I'm now joined by the man whose chainsaw was taken to the Labour's Workers' Rights Bill, and that's the Shadow Business Secretary, Andrew Griffith. Mr. Griffith, welcome to the show. May I commend you on your adept use there of a dangerous power tool. Talking of which, it's going to take quite a lot of power to try and get yourself out of the polling conundrum you're currently in. Today, you made some encouraging noises. £47 billion of tax and welfare cuts, and £23 billion in welfare cuts. Foreign aid slashed to 0.1%. But, Mr. Griffith, you had 14 years to do all of that, and you didn't do any of it. Why should we trust anything you say now?
Well, look, we're under new management. I don't think it's about trust me. I think it's about show me. And what you saw today, that £47 billion reduction in state spending, starting to get to grips with a national debt that, you're right, has ballooned for too long under too many governments. And then talking about some of the opportunities to then redeploy some of that. So I talked about how we can take 250,000 pubs, restaurants, high street businesses out of business rates entirely, getting back on the side of small businesses, keeping our high street alive. Also that national insurance rebate for young people to allow them to get a foot on the housing ladder. So clear, credible plans that many people will say, look, you're right, this is just a start, we want to see more of those plans. How can we trust the Conservatives? But we lay out our workings, we show what we're going to do, and we show that we're on the side of British people. In my domain of business, we're on the side of entrepreneurs, the self-employed, people who are trying to start a business, and family businesses. I also said we're going to look again at IR35, something that's really ravaged the ranks of self-employed in this country. So we're on our way back. Rome wasn't built in a day. It's going to take time for people to trust us. I understand that. But this conference is all about building those firm foundations and giving people a chance to know what we stand for, the new Conservatives under new leadership.
Well, Andrew Griffith, the Conservative Party used to stand for low taxation and less interference in our lives, and instead we found ourselves with the highest taxation policy since World War II when you got out of power. Why would things be any different in the future?
Well, look, I think you're seeing an honesty, a willingness to tell those tough truths, the truth that we're all living beyond our means, that successive governments, including, yes, the preceding one, was too quick to borrow, too quick to raise taxes, and didn't want to talk about those tough decisions. So today, we are talking about those tough decisions. Reform of welfare, reducing the foreign aid budget, cutting back the size of Whitehall. But I don't expect people to take us entirely on trust. I think they want to see the plans. That's why it's important that we're doing the work. We're doing that now. We're coming out with these policies a long time ahead of when there might be a general election, so people can scrutinise that, test that, see if that reflects what I think people want, what people in my constituency tell me. They think the state is too big, they think it makes life too slow, and they deeply resent it when the state is trying to tell them what to think, how to act, or increasingly trying to take their liberty through a mandatory identification scheme. Those are things that the Conservatives oppose, and I'm really glad that at this conference you're starting to see the first light of some policies of what we will do once we get back into government.
Andrew, a lot of people have been saying at your conference today that Nigel Farage isn't the answer. He's a bit of a tribute act, if you like, to the Conservatives, but it does seem to a lot of people that Kemi Badenoch has finally woken up to the fact that leaving the ECHR is a good idea. What took the Conservatives so long? Boris Johnson today said he went too far, too quickly on net zero. There seem to be quite a lot of U-turns in opposition. Is that proof that it's easy being in opposition?
No, I don't think it's certainly not easy being in opposition, and it's not easy admitting that you made mistakes in government. It's not easy changing the course of trajectory on policy. But it's the right thing to do. I want to get elected as the next government of this country and do the right thing, not say the things that will help us get elected. It will be infinitely more popular on many polls to say, let's just carry on splurging money on welfare. But that wouldn't be the right thing for our country. It would leave our children and our grandchildren worse off, and it wouldn't give us the capacity to do what I want to do as a tax-cutting small state Conservative, reduce the size of the state, allow people to keep more of what they earn. Now, we can't all do that on day one, but we can start by surfacing those tough choices. And yes, look, there is a discontinuity with the past. We are under new management. We have a new leader. We have a new shadow cabinet, and there will be some things that are being done different that would never have been in the past, and some of those reflect things that we shouldn't as Conservatives have done.
Andrew Griffith, the poll out in this past hour, a YouGov poll, that stated that 50% of Tory members don't want Kemi Badenoch to be the leader at the next general election. You talk about under new management. Do you have the wrong manager?
Now, look, I mean, genuinely not a single person at this conference has said that to me. People have said, look, they're very happy with the fact we've now got to a position on net zero that reconciles the fact that we need an industry in this country. We can't compete with the fourth highest, with energy costs that are 4 times higher than many other countries. They're pleased with our stance of being back on the side of businesses. They like the fact we're going to repeal Labour's family business death tax as well as the farm tax, that we're going to help the local high street with 250,000 businesses taken out of business rates entirely, right? That's a good example of being a low tax party that seeks to remove the burden of the state on businesses. And there's lots more to do, but we're in year 1 effectively of opposition under a new leadership, a changed Conservative Party, and I've got to talk about the positives about the agenda for government that we're starting to lay out and will continue to do so over time.
OK, thanks for joining us tonight on GBNews Tonight. Shadow Business Secretary Andrew Griffith, and please enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, it's Monday, so I'm joined in the studio by GBNews' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Nigel, welcome to the show. You listened in there attentively to Mr Griffith. What was your take?
That the Tories are all over the place at the moment, that what Kemi Badenoch promised was something called thoughtful conservatism. And what that was to actually work out policies in a deliberate, slow and analytical way, and then announce them in 2027.
Has it been too slow? Has Reform UK stolen them off?
Well, what's happened is Reform has spooked them so much, they're suddenly coming out with a raft of policies now. And the trouble about them is that if you start looking at them, the figures they're banding about are purely notional. I mean, if you just take their welfare cuts and their cuts to the civil service that they're planning, you're talking about £30 billion, fine. But we've got no idea exactly which people on benefits will suffer.
Well, they talked about the low-level mental health conditions. It might say people are saying I'm anxious, I've got stress, therefore
but they haven't
I should be on the sick. It needs to be dealt with.
We haven't actually explained that, or they're talking about getting rid of 130,000 civil servants.
That seems like a good idea.
Well, Boris Johnson tried it too. He tried an identical policy. The policy announced by the Tories today was that we will get the civil service back to 2016, to what it was then. Boris Johnson did the same thing and couldn't achieve it.
But the debts we're talking about there, the £100 billion in interest alone, a lot of that is because There are huge, bloated pay rises for the public sector and the Labour Party. They can't cut benefits because their backbenchers rebel. So surely give the Tories some credit. At least they're trying to nibble down the cost of the state.
Yeah, but what I'm asking for is some more detail about exactly how they're going to do it. This is what I mean about policies have been done on the hoof, because there is no detail there whatsoever. I mean, they've got spending plans. I like the idea of young people getting £5,000 when they start a new job. That sounded a good policy.
Why? Why should young people get a freebie?
Well, I think that to give them a good start, it's very difficult for a young person, for instance, to get on the housing ladder.
Well, because immigration's out of control. There aren't enough houses.
Well, it's not just immigration. I mean, it's actually the price of houses. So getting a deposit together is really difficult. If a young person can have £5,000 to start off with, that would help with that deposit.
But if you give every young person in the land £5 grand, what's going to happen to house prices? I put it to you, they go up £5 grand.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, I just think that if you're building enough affordable homes, you should be able to. The equation will be.
But they're not. Nobody is. They haven't for years. Successive governments have failed to build enough houses, and meanwhile, millions of people have flooded in, pushing the prices.
By the time the Tories get in, we'll probably find that Labour have got their target of 1.5 million new homes.
You believe
but the policy still costs £2.8 billion. So, again, it's a question of where you get the money from. They've come up with figures where they say this is where the money's going to come from, and they haven't explained exactly how, which is why I'm sceptical they can achieve it.
OK, Nigel Farage, thank you, as ever, for your contribution tonight. Of course, you're with us for the rest of the hour. Thank you. Coming up in just a moment's time, at long last, the Tories have backed leaving the ECHR. Why did it take them so long? And anyway, is it all too little, too late? That's next.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GBNews Tonight with me, your host, Martin Dorby. Well, the moment has finally come. The Tory party has officially, at long last, declared its support for leaving the ECHR. It began with this last year.
I think that the ECHR argument is not the right one. I think that is the biggest weakness. I think it will divide our party. It will mean that the infighting and squabbling will continue.
But now there's been a sudden and dramatic change of position, because here was Kemi Badenoch's announcement yesterday.
We must leave the ECHR and repeal the Human Rights Act. But this is the only way to end spurious legal claims from immigrants with dubious stories and excuses. This is the only way to allow a British government, the next Conservative government, to deliver a British borders plan in full.
Hurrah, many might say, but what took you so long? Is this bold policy move too little too late, especially considering the fact that Reform UK announced this policy now well over a year ago? Well, one person who knows more than most is the Reform Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire and a former Conservative MP, Dame Andrea Jenkins. Dame Andrea, always a pleasure to have you on the show. What do you make of Kemi Badenoch's sudden awakening?
I think it's desperation, don't you? And I think this is why they are doing so badly in the polls, because people don't believe it. I mean, look, I remember being in the Conservative Party when I was broaching the subject 2 years ago about leaving the ECHR. I had a petition with the Con Post, other MPs was involved, and we just could not persuade them. And we got 50,000 signatures, Martin. So we know what the party's like. I mean, we've already seen people come out already, haven't they? Former MPs saying that, even Tobias Elwood, etc., saying that they would never back anything like this. And they would not get it through, Martin. I mean, I was there when Brexit, you remember the Brexit years, when the One Nation lot of Conservatives was colluding with the Speaker. They'll say anything now, just like the Lib Dems do, to try and get back to power, but it's too little too late, Martin.
But I wonder if, to Kemi Badenoch's credit, you know, you're right, the Conservative Party has been racked with division on Brexit. It was basically two parties within one. There were the wet Conservatives who perhaps might be better off in the Liberal Democrats, and perhaps it's the same again on the ECHR. But Miss Badenoch has said, if you don't toe the line, then you won't be able to stand at the next party. So maybe give us some credit for showing some strength there.
No, but she's not going to deliver, Martin. I mean, I remember I was on the European Scrutiny Committee with Bill Cash, challenging her because she wouldn't rip up the last of the EU red tape on the statute. So she doesn't deliver. She's not got a reputation for delivering when she was a minister. I mean, the thing is, that has been detrimental because it's allowed Starmer to go on and allow closer ties again. So I just think it's all hot air, really, and there'll be no delivery on this.
There's been quite a lot of sudden awakenings. Boris Johnson today said he went too fast, too soon on net zero. I mean, you know, you were a huge fan of Boris Johnson's back in the day. Are people allowed to change their mind, or is it literally hot air?
Look, I've always been a friend of Boris. I still am, but I've never supported net zero. You know, I've always charted my own path, really, haven't I, Martin? Regardless of what the party does, I've never followed net zero. Always been pro-Brexit. Always said about leaving the ECHR. So, look, we need people now to deliver, and I think the Conservatives have had their chance and they blew it, and we've got to give Nigel and Reform the chance now, because let's face it, Nigel's authentic. All this stuff he has been saying for years, and way long before myself, way long before any Conservative, and he will deliver for Britain, and I think this is showing in the polls, actually.
A lot of people are saying, why should we trust the Conservatives again after 14 years of not doing any of this stuff they're laying out today? But the Conservatives would also say, why should we trust Reform UK, a totally unproven party in governance? And they're saying that you come out with cheap slogans and mere populism.
What are they trying to do? They're actually pinching our policies because they've got none of their own, and they're all gimmicky. Did you see the cigarette packets? It was all about reform. Did you see the chocolate bars with Kemi's name on where they spelt Britain wrong? So talking about gimmicks, I think they need to look in the mirror, Martin.
OK, superb stuff. Thank you very much for joining us on the show tonight. Pleasure to have your company. That's the Reform Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire, former Conservative MP, Dame Andrea Jenkins. Go back to studio in Westminster now, some reaction from GBNews, the senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. Nigel, both of the parties here are accusing each other of stealing each other's clothes. I guess it comes down to that word that we mentioned before, trust. Who can be trusted the most to deliver ostensibly pretty similar policies?
Yeah, and what I think you have to do is examine the policies and see if you think they're realistic. I mean, what the Tories have come up with, again, is no answers. This is policy on the hoof. Just leaving the ECHR, I'm against doing that, but let's just take it as a policy. Apparently, they're not thinking of leaving the Refugee Convention. Now, I cannot see how one works without the other.
You have to do the full flush, don't you?
Yeah, you have to do the whole thing. There's the Refugee Convention that gives rights to refugees. That's policed by the ECHR. But the important thing is that we have to pull out of that and take that out of British law, because that's where it is at the moment. So that's weird. Then we talk about the 750,000 migrants that Kemi Badenoch will deport. She can't say where to.
150,000, I believe.
150,000 a year, 750,000 over a parliament. So where are they going to go? That if they can't go back to their home country, she says, oh, we'll try and find a country that'll take them. Where are you going to find a country that'll take them? I mean, these are not things that you can actually think are going to work. She talks about a detention centre for up to 2,000 people. Well, what she's talking about there is a new prison. I mean, that's not just a detention centre. And again, no detail, no how are we going to build it, how are we going to deal with it. So at the moment, without that detail, we can't see if any of this is going to work.
We've seen a number of defections from the Conservatives to Reform UK with this threat to expunge Conservatives who fail to back leaving the ECHR. Do you think you might see Ed Davey picking up a few wet Conservatives?
Yes, I think you will. I mean, what has happened here is the Tories, because of reform, have lurched to the right. There'll be a lot of One Nation Tories around who'll be saying, this is not the party that we joined. The only place they can go would be the Lib Dems.
But isn't that perhaps an equitable outcome for all of British politics? When you think about it, go back to the Brexit years, half the Conservatives didn't really believe in it. They had a rictus grin and they grinned through gritted teeth about getting Brexit done. Their heart was never in it. The proof's in the pudding. We had a watered-down, neutered Brexit. And on leaving the ECHR, half the party is for it and half the party is again it. And isn't that the essence of the Conservative Party's problem? They're too broad a church with no central belief system.
Well, I mean, they have a belief system. It's just that the belief system is contrary to one half of the party from the other half. So I'm talking about the One Nation Tories. If you go back to Brexit, we're talking about David Cameron, One Nation Tory, a moderate. He talked about compassionate conservatism. So that was a very different kind of Tory leader to the one we're seeing at the moment. The one we're seeing at the moment has been made by reform.
But it's a very different country we live in now, particularly with the chaos on our borders. We're seeing the same thing all across Western Europe. We're seeing the same thing in the United States. The world has changed, and that's because the country has been changed by untrammelled immigration, both legal and illegal. A lot of that was on the Conservative Party's watch. And is that the problem? They'll be tainted with that forever now?
Well, yes. I mean, the difference between Reform and the Tories is the Reform carry no baggage with them because they've never been in power before. The Tories carry 14 years of baggage because they messed up the country during that time. So your question about trust is absolutely right. Why do you trust the Tories when they didn't do what they could have done in those 14 years?
You think when push comes to shove, people like say, you know, it might be a gamble going with something new, but how can it be as bad as we've had all these past years?
Except that immigration won't be the major thing at the general election.
You don't think
people will go back to the economy. It's always the economy at general election time. Do they feel better off than they did at the previous election?
I suspect they might not. Thank you very much, Nigel. Now, coming up very shortly.
The division that's being created is absolutely disgusting. Mainly created by angry, middle-aged white men.
And that bang was the sound of Gary Neville's working class credentials going up in smoke. As Gary Neville bizarrely reveals he took down a union flag. We'll be looking at the upcoming Tower Hamlets Council motion declaring the Raise the Colours campaign as far right. That's next.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Over the coming days, high pressure is set to dominate our weather, which means many areas will see dry and settled conditions, though we can't rule out some light rain at times. And we'll see that light rain start to push into the far northwest this evening as frontal systems edging closer. A fair few isobars on the chart here too, so quite blustery at times, but otherwise high pressure sitting to the south, which means staying mostly dry, though we'll see some thicker clouds start to edge into Wales, southwest England. This could produce some odd spells of drizzle, particularly around hilly areas. But the main source of the rain will be pushing into parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, so quite a wet start here and quite cloudy for many areas, so remaining mostly mild. Most towns and cities dropping between 11 to 13 degrees Celsius. So once again, it is set to be another wet start across Scotland. It still could be fairly blustery around western coast, though those winds will ease away through the course of the day, perhaps seeing some brighter spells to the very far east of Scotland. Across Northern Ireland, once again, plenty of low clouds, some light outbreaks of rain. This will also start to push into northwestern parts of England. Wales and southwest England, once again, mostly dry, though plenty of low cloud, which could lead to a gloomy start and some patchy drizzle around hilly areas. Elsewhere, we could see some low cloud, mist and fog, but it should clear away fairly quickly through the morning and remaining mostly dry across much of England and Wales, perhaps more cloud around compared to this afternoon. Outbreaks of rain starting to edge into northern parts of England and Wales, but generally clearing across Scotland and Northern Ireland, so turning brighter here, just a few showers across the far north of Scotland. And it's still going to be warm in the sunshine, not quite as warm as this afternoon though, highs reaching around 17 to 18 degrees Celsius. Now, some remnants of cloud and rain could start to skirt its way into southern parts through the early hours of Wednesday, eventually clearing through the afternoon. But for most, it should be another dry day, sunny spells, more cloud across Scotland once again with some blustery showers. But high pressure remains dominating for the rest of the week, so it should be mostly dry, a little cloudy at times, and temperatures around about average for the time of year.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Dalby. Now, the war on British flags continues, with the latest iteration coming in the form of the former Manchester United captain turned left-wing lovey Gary Neville.
Middle-aged white men who know exactly what they're doing. Funnily enough, on one of my development sites last week, there was a Union Jack flag put up, and I took it down instantly.
There you go, ashamed of the flag perhaps. Well, the war on Union flags doesn't end there, because this Wednesday, Tower Hamlets Council, yes, Tower Hamlets, is set to vote on a motion that declares the Operation Raise the Colours campaign as an extreme far-right campaign. And this, of course, is the very council that took down dozens of Union flags while having let Palestinian flags hang over their area for many, many months. In fact, I put it to you, for well over a year. I'm joined in the studio by the Pink Ladies campaigner, Orla Minahane, and of course, GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Orla, welcome to Westminster. Pleasure to have your company.
Thank you, Martin.
A lot of people have been saying bad things about Raise the Colours and, of course, the Pink Ladies movement. You're all really under the same umbrella, but to be officially talked about and designated as far-right at a council meeting, is that taking things too far?
Well, I mean, when I first heard about this and it was first brought to our attention, I actually thought it was quite funny. And I did laugh because it's so utterly ridiculous. But then I spoke to some of the ladies in the group and we are absolutely furious. Furious because, again, we're being labelled extreme racists. You know, the definition of far-right is extreme nationalist or xenophobic racists. We are women, mothers and grandmothers, who are simply saying to the government, why are you still bringing in thousands of men into this country unchecked and sticking them in hotels and HMOs next to our children's schools? That is not racist. That is just basic risk assessment. So, you know, when we looked at this motion, we thought, what are they trying to do here? What is it that they're trying to achieve? And simply, it's silencing us. That's what they're trying to do. Silence us so that we don't ask questions, we don't ask the difficult questions of the council and the government. Simple.
So if Tower Hamlets decide to go ahead and designate Operation Razor Cutters as a far-right group, what happens next? Presumably they won't be allowed to do anything in the area. They could be arrested. I mean, where does it end?
Well, that's what we want to find out. So on Wednesday evening, there's a council meeting at 7 o'clock, and the Pink Ladies from Canary Wharf and Cheshunt and Epping are going to the council offices to stand outside to understand what it is that they're going to do. What happens if we go to hotels and ask questions? What happens if we question the government about things that are happening in our areas and about the hotels and HMOs? Will we be arrested? It's just utterly ridiculous.
It's symptomatic of a nationwide issue, I believe, that there seems to be only an issue with a certain type of flags.
Correct.
I mean, I commute through Tower Hamlets, and I've got to say, for well over a year, Palestinian flags were flapping straight after October the 7th, 2 years ago. They were flapping even on some council buildings, and they were there for a long, long time. So long, some of them were torn in the wind. They've been there ages, that's my point. Whereas in about a month and a half alone, Tower Hamlets decided to use taxpayers' money to remove, we've got information here, 78 flags were taken down, Union flags and St George's flags in the area. We've got two-tier policing of flags.
Absolutely, and it's utterly ridiculous. The last time I checked, this was not Gaza, this was not Palestine, this is the UK, this is Britain. You cannot possibly, anyone in their right mind, say you are a racist to hang or fly your national flag in your own country. It's utterly bizarre.
Nigel Nelson, let's bring you in now. You're no fan of the Raise the Cudders movement, but surely it's too far to designate them officially as far right.
Yes, well, I think it is, because I don't like the terms far right. Far right, as Orla said, is a particular term, and it's used for people who use the tactics of fascist dictatorships. It's street violence, there's things like that. I don't like the term far left either. So I don't think the designation would actually make any difference at all. When it comes to the flags, I think that if you put a flag up on somebody else's property, this was the issue with Gary Neville, and it's the same issue in Tower Hamlets, then the people who own that property, in this case the council, have the right to take them down.
Yeah, but they don't take all the flags down with equity. That's the point.
No,
they leave the Palestinian flags flapping for a year.
I understand that.
They're straight on the St George's
But
ones.
if you own a piece of land, then you have the choice of which flag to fly. I'm not saying that I'm in favour of Tower Hamlets Council flying Palestinian flags. What I'm saying is they have a right to do so.
But do they, though? Sorry to interrupt, but do they? Because they are a British council paid for by British taxpayers.
Yeah.
So why should they then have a flag, a Palestinian flag, instead of a British flag? It just doesn't make sense.
Tower Hamlets is a weird place because they're their own political party too. So it is strange. But the whole thing is they were elected by the voters to make decisions. And if they make a decision that they want to fly Palestinian flags or Ukrainian flags...
Yeah, but that's not the point, Nigel. The point is this. They can take flags down willy-nilly. Clearly, they're not offended by all flags, they're offended by some flags. The clear difference of point here, if you designate an organisation that operates outside of your constituency, outside of your postcode, because Razor Cutters is nationwide, if Tower Hamlets takes it in their knowledge, in their wisdom, to designate this movement as far right, that has nationwide implications. The people that run this organisation...
Why does it have nationwide implications?
Because they're getting threatened on the streets. They come on my show. I've had them in. They're getting called Nazis, fascists. They're scared of their safety. Words have consequences. Calling them far right, how can that help?
Well, it doesn't help, but that is my point about I wouldn't designate the Pink Ladies, I wouldn't designate the people that we've had in the studio who put up flags as far right. But the fact that they do so at Tower Hamlets, they are entitled to have that opinion.
No, I don't know.
That is the free speech. That's the free speech argument.
But the free speech only seems to work one way. It doesn't work in our favour. It only works in their favour.
No, it does work both ways. I mean, you are able to go and protest outside asylum hotels.
Well, we won't be if this motion goes through on Wednesday. That's the whole point. So the thing is that we're concerned about, if this happens on Wednesday and it's allowed to happen, where else is it going to happen? Is it going to happen in Rotherham and in Birmingham and in Coventry and all those areas that would be considered multicultural? Are we then going to be shut down in all of those areas? Because then what happens is once you're shut down and your speech is shut down, then you can't ask questions. And when you can't ask questions, then you get the same scenario as the rape gang inquiry, where people are shut up for 20 years and the truth never comes out. That's dangerous. Yeah. Very, very dangerous.
I mean, I'm not arguing for free speech to be shut down, and you have the right to free speech as much as anybody else. Where the narrow argument was that it was over the land where flags go up.
OK, we have to do there. A superb debate. Thank you very much for coming in. And please let us know how the council meeting goes on Wednesday. That's the Pink Ladies campaigner, Orla Minahan, and, of course, Nigel Nelson. Now, a spokesman for Tower Hamlets Council, leading party, Aspire, told GB News this. We are aware members of the public have been putting up St George's flags on various structures. While we recognise people's wishes to express their views, we have a responsibility to monitor and maintain council infrastructure. Where flags are attached to council-owned infrastructure without permission, they may be removed as part of routine maintenance. And thank you to you both. And coming up in a moment for tonight's finale, now you well may be fined for parking in your own driveway. Yes, you heard that right. More madness from a Labour council. Stay tuned.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's a bit of a mixed picture across the Mediterranean over the next couple of days. Plenty of showers around for the Canaries as we head through Tuesday afternoon. Perhaps some fairly brisk winds too. But for much of Spain, Portugal, southern parts of France and Italy, there'll be plenty of sunny spells on offer. However, for the Balkans, a lot of wet weather around, perhaps even some snow over the mountains. So definitely feeling a little bit cooler here with some brisk winds too. There is going to be more sunshine on offer as we head through the rest of the week, and temperatures quite widely into the 20s for most of us.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say.
There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, Martin Dorby. Now for tonight's finale, one of the most absurd stories of the entire week. Southampton City Council has threatened locals with £1,000 fines if they park on their own driveways. That's right, the council has sent round letters with the warning to residents who drive over non-dropped curbs to get onto their own driveways. And the move has, of course, been criticised by many, including my next guest. I'm joined now by the Conservative Council for Southampton City Council, Peter Bailey. Peter, welcome to the show. I thought I'd heard everything in terms of council insanity, but charging people £1,000 to park on their own driveway, this takes the biscuit.
I think, firstly, the amount that they are charging is a huge amount for parking on your own drive. But equally, that sheer amount and the threat of court action causes a lot of anguish and grief, especially to the older people, to vulnerable, to disabled people that I've all come across have had this. And to make it even worse, the council has not actually ever once collected the £1,000 fine. So they're sending letters out, threatening a £1,000 fine, and they've never, ever actually collected that fine. It just causes complete unnecessary misery for people.
Well, that's the definition of insanity. So to threaten a £1,000 fine but not actually collect the fine. So what's the point?
I don't know what the point. There is a bit of a possible conflict of interest because the people sending out the letter are Balfour Beatty, who subcontract the roads for Southampton Council. And obviously they also will install drop curbs.
Funny that. So what's happening here is you get a £1,000 threat through the post, and by the way, if you want to avoid that, simply come to the council. And by the way, we can install one of these drop curbs in for you at a handsome price of £800. £800 to get a curb in outside your house when you don't need it. You can go up a normal curb as it is, and I put it to you, every Englishman's home is his castle. This is the violation of that.
Well, we've had cases where people are in council homes and they've been there for 40 years. They've been parking on their drive for 40 years, and suddenly they get a letter saying, sorry, £1,000 fine. It is complete madness, and it's just causes huge amounts of grief. And actually, with the other side of it, for those people who have paid to have a drop curb, they are getting quite annoyed that they've paid for it, their neighbours haven't paid for it, and yet there's still no action taken by the council. So it's the council just come across as being bullying and completely unfeeling towards their local residents.
I think that's a very polite way of putting it. Let's leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us, Conservative Councillor for Southampton City Council, Peter Bailey. Now, of course, I'm joined in the studio by GB News senior political commentator Nigel Nelson, and also hoping interview Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. Welcome to you, Sir Jacob. I'm going to start with you. I wonder if this draconian fine towards people who own their own homes has anything to do with the fact that Southampton City Council had to be bailed out by central government because they're £39 million in the red.
Well, what Southampton Council argue is that this has always been the case. They're not just sending out threats of fines for parking on their own drive. They're not. What they're sending out is letters saying it's against the law to drive over a curb or drive over a footpath. Now, the weird bit is that people have taken houses where there is obviously a curb and a footpath outside their drive. You wouldn't, for instance, buy a dishwasher if you couldn't fit it into your kitchen, and the principle here is about the same.
Well, the principle is perhaps then the council in the first place should have put a drop curb in.
Well, this is a good argument. Why wasn't a drop curb?
But they didn't
put in. Well, but the question then, which I think that Tory councillor should be asking, is why wasn't this done in the first place? But certainly, I would not buy a house if I saw there was a curb and a footpath outside.
That'd be ridiculous.
No, I wouldn't, because I would know I was breaking the law if I wouldn't go across it.
How would 99% of people even know this kind of town hall tin pottery even exist?
The Highways Act, and it's been around for years, that people do know that they can't park on curbs. You'll get fined in London if you do. You can't park on pavement.
It's been going on for 40 years at some addresses. No one's given a toot's cahoot until suddenly they spot a new way of shaking money out of taxpayers.
They should have done, but what is interesting is they don't seem to have actually imposed any of these fines so far.
Yeah, they're threatening pensioners with enforced works carried out, by the way, by their mates who subcontract out to the council. Well, it's jobs for the boys.
There are two questions. The first is why the council didn't do it in the first place, and in which case
because they're bankrupt.
do they have a responsibility? The second case is, why does someone move into a home where there's a footpath in front of it?
Well, because it's got a drive outside, and they're probably, by the way, being told they've got to plug their electric car in outside the house, and they can't do it from the curb. If they do, they'll get sued for somebody tripping over the curb, the cable. It's nonsense. So, Jacob Rees-Mogg, I want to bring you in here because I know that you've consistently voted against this kind of town hall kind of dictatorships. This is nonsense.
It's absolutely ridiculous, and people need to look at their title deeds to see whether they actually bought the access when they paid for their property, because some of them may have done, and the pensioner who's used it for 40 years may have established a right-of-way by having used it for such an extended period. So people need to look at the details of the law, and I'm not giving legal advice on GB News because I'm not a lawyer, but people need to check their rights, and councils should back their residents. Councils suddenly become the enemy of the people who vote for them, and it is ridiculous.
I guess Jacob Bear has got a quick statement to read out from Southampton City Council, who told GB News this: footways are not generally constructed to hold the weight of vehicle traffic, which is why this offence can be enforceable with a fine to deter offenders and compensate highway authorities for repairing the footways where there is evidence of damage occurring. This is not a new process for Southampton. Read out my best Dalek voice. Up next, Jacob Rees-Mogg, is State of the Nation. What's on your menu?
Well, I'm going to be talking about the European Convention on Human Rights. I think the Tory Party conference is actually going very well.
Why aren't you there?
Well, I'm not an MP anymore. There's nothing for me to do there. But I can discuss it here. And I've got Andrew Bowie down the line to talk about the economy, because the Tories are being serious about the economy, setting out that we're running out of money. And getting out of the European Convention on Human Rights means we can deal with the small boats. So really important policy being enunciated. I think Kemi Badenoch, having waited for a bit, is now setting out her stall in an attractive way.
Did you hear that Andrew Rosendale told GB News this afternoon as an exclusive, that the national anthem will not be played at the closing ceremony? Do you think that's an insult to the memory of Margaret Thatcher?
That seems ridiculous.
Yeah.
Who decided that? I mean, for heaven's sake, play the national anthem at every possible opportunity. Don't we play it at the end of GB News when we close down?
We play it every morning where we stand up proudly.
And do you stand up? I hope you do.
I do. My head hits the ceiling most mornings. So, Jacob Rees-Mogg, absolute pleasure. State of the Nation is up next. Nigel Nelson, always a pleasure to see you again on Wednesday for 3 hours of argument. State of the Nation is up next. Thanks for your company tonight. First, of course, here's your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Over the coming days, high pressure is set to dominate our weather, which means many areas will see dry and settled conditions, though we can't rule out some light rain at times. And we'll see that light rain start to push into the far northwest this evening as frontal systems edge in closer. A fair few isobars on the chart here too, so quite blustery at times, but otherwise high pressure sitting to the south, which means staying mostly dry, though we'll see some thicker clouds start to edge into Wales, southwest England. This could produce some odd spells of drizzle, particularly around hilly areas. But the main source of the rain will be pushing into parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland. It's quite a wet start here and quite cloudy for many areas, so remaining mostly mild. Most towns and cities dropping between 11 to 13 degrees Celsius. So once again, it is set to be another wet start across Scotland. It still could be fairly blustery around western coast, though those winds will ease away through the course of the day, perhaps seeing some brighter spells to the very far east of Scotland. Across Northern Ireland, once again, plenty of low clouds, some light outbreaks of rain. This will also start to push into northwestern parts of England. Wales and southwest England, once again, mostly dry, though plenty of low cloud, which could lead to a gloomy start and some patchy drizzle around hilly areas. Elsewhere, we could see some low cloud, mist and fog, but it should clear away fairly quickly briskly through the morning and remaining mostly dry across much of England and Wales, perhaps more cloud around compared to this afternoon. Outbreaks of rain starting to edge into northern parts of England and Wales, but generally clearing across Scotland and Northern Ireland, so turning brighter here. Just a few showers across the far north of Scotland. And it's still going to be warm in the sunshine, not quite as warm as this afternoon though, highs reaching around 17 to 18 degrees Celsius. Now, some remnants of cloud and rain could start to skirt its way into southern parts through the early hours of Wednesday, eventually clearing through the afternoon. But for most, it should be another dry day, sunny spells, more cloud across Scotland once again with some blustery showers. But high pressure remains dominating for the rest of the week, so it should be mostly dry, a little cloudy at times, and temperatures around about average for the time of year.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think for far too long in this country, millions of people felt as though they weren't represented at all by the establishment media.
GB News was needed because there literally was no other voice. Everyone was saying the same thing.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
But journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
Charlie Peters, he gave a voice to the victims of grooming gangs, and now, of course,